Welcome to Medical Confessions. I'm Scott.
I'm Jen.
I'm April.
Today we're going to be talking about tattoos and why that they stay on your body for a lifetime and how to get them removed should you have one you don't want.
And we just randomly picked this episode because one of us may have a tattoo that they need to remove.
There is a good chance that when you get a tattoo, what are the two, April, you said that you shouldn't get?
Someone's name, unless it's a son or daughter,
But
or
even then,
a ring
a relationship
tattooed.
gets sour. I mean, even then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Scott and I have both broken the cardinal rule. I don't need to remove mine yet, but Scott...
Yet.
Okay, that sounded bad. But Scott clearly
I
does.
do have a wedding ring tattoo that needs to be removed.
Do you remember me, like, when you got this? I totally teased him and said, you're getting an infinity on your finger, and, like, just by process of your fingers being up, I'm like, you're going to start to wear through that, and, like, what's the irony of getting a wedding ring that's the infinity, and then it's going to start to wear on either side and slowly unravel, and I think it's unique that it is wearing, and as did the relationship.
I did not make fun of him, but I looked at him and judged him.
And you don't judge. Like, you're
No,
pretty
like,
non-judgy.
Oh, that was a
I
bad
judge,
idea.
and I tell you how I feel.
Bad idea.
There's a good chance that was a mistake, but we're going to take a field trip and we're going to actually show you how they remove these tattoos. So first we'll talk about and tell you how they do it, and then we'll show you.
That's right. But we
that's
want to start
exciting.
out, like, what is a tattoo? Let's start out with...
Well, let's just give the short answer right away for those people who don't want to watch the entire video. Basically, it's about a group of white blood cells called macrophages. Macrophages are a type of white blood cell whose job it is to get rid of cellular debris that your body doesn't need, and they come through and basically engorge any molecules that your body doesn't need, and there's molecules inside of them that break down those molecules, and then your body can get rid of them. The ink and the pigments, those molecules are so large, the macrophages aren't able to break them down, and so they stay inside that macrophage. Another group of cells called fibroblasts then hold them in the specific spot in your skin, and it stays throughout your lifetime. And why are we giggling?
Oh, well, because this is your synopses, like your short answer, and I do, like, word association when you start talking, and then as soon as you said macrophage, I was like, macrame.
Macrame.
Yarn. Those are coming back. Like plant hangers.
Is this why I need to get this removed? Because all the women in my life trail off when I start talking?
But you're cute, so it's fine. We'll keep you around.
And the fact that we got critiqued a little bit and we're trying to change things up, that I'm like, oh, look at the camera.
We did. We
Oh.
had some really smart, good, successful people give us some helpful hints, and that pushed us closer, which is already out of my comfort zone.
Right.
Like, I feel ultra close to people right now. I don't like it.
Yeah.
So if you do notice a little bit of change in the format, is because we did go to VidCon recently in LA and got some tips from some really good people, so hopefully you will see a little bit of change and it'll be better for you to watch and more entertaining. If not, maybe they didn't give us good advice, but
Sorry
I feel
about
like
that.
it was.
Yeah, but
good
were they
advice.
drinking when they gave the advice?
There was some beer
That's
being
right.
imbibed, but that's when you get the best answers,
That's
is
true.
when
Yeah,
people
That's
are
true.
drinking. So
Honesty.
it's all good stuff.
So short answer, but let's talk about the history of tattoos, because that's always, for me, that's the fun part. Like, history of anything is
Well,
super
fun fact, the word tattoo derives from the Polynesian word ta, which means to strike, and the Latin word for tattoo is stigma.
Oh, yeah. The first known tattoo was on a mummy that was found in the glacial ice caps in the Alps, and he's dated back to like 3500 BC. He had like 60 tattoos on him, which I think is exciting.
And they were still, how did they find that out? Like, because he was frozen in the ice.
Well, yeah,
Was it ice water? Was it like, not ice water, salt water. Salt water.
Salt water.
Salt water.
Yes, it was ice water.
No,
It's
salt
really
water.
cold in the Alps.
Salt water. Was it salt water?
Salt water, like the type of pigment it was, or what do you mean?
No, what he was, was the ice caps.
I don't know what you're asking.
Forget
right
it. Forget it.
now. Do you know what she's
I'm
asking?
going forward to the research. Maybe I'm jumping.
The guy was preserved, so
Yeah, he was
then-
preserved in the
yeah.
ice, and then they
I'm
were able
trying
to.
to
What's
get
the
the
salt
question.
content of that ice?
I don't know. It's the Alps, so I would assume that it's rainwater, and there's no
Oh,
salt in rainwater.
True. Okay.
Unless it's
never
like
mind.
the acid rain that nobody is.
I'm
was
just
a problem
wondering,
since I was in
was
school.
his tattoos affected at all? We talked about different. We'll talk about treatments
Oh,
later.
I
Okay, now
see.
you're jumping
Okay.
into what I'm trying to serve up here.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay,
My mind thinks faster than you guys apparently.
No, they were just markings on him they could tell was pigment from some sort of purposefully placed marking that was a tattoo.
Sounds barbaric.
They were just markings. The first known actual depiction of something, a representation of something, was from the Egyptians, and they found 2 mummies with those. Also, 3000 BC was when those were
That's
found. So
crazy.
tattoos have been around a very long time.
Winston Churchill's mother had a tattoo of a snake wrapping around her wrist. And apparently during the 18th, 19th, and 20th century, tattoos were common among English and Russian royalty. Until they became affordable to commoners, then they were deemed trashy.
Oh, that's
It wasn't-
And then there we are.
Yeah, it wasn't until the Renaissance of the mid 20th century that they came back in popularity.
So, but she had a snake on her wrist.
Mm-hmm.
That just seems really like.
Yeah, that's hardcore for
Yeah.
Churchill's mom.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, apparently she would wear like diamond bracelets during social
To cover
big,
it up.
Oh.
big like important events. But yeah,
I wonder what the significance was.
there's
Yeah.
a lot. It can be used for good and evil. The snake. But I couldn't pin down one significant because
Right.
in Chinese, I guess,
Yeah.
history, just so many meanings behind the snake that I couldn't really identify one particular.
That's funny.
Wow.
I wonder where that was documented, where that came, where they pulled that up.
Churchill's mom was a badass. Huh?
Yeah, kind
Kinda,
of. I guess
yeah.
so. Royalty. They were
Wow.
into it.
So this was when it was trashy then.
Yes, when it was too expensive for commoners to afford it, then that's when the royalties were getting it. Then it became affordable, then it was trashy.
And was it like a solid color snake, or was it
I don't know,
Was
but
it red on, was it
I
red
have
on
n-
yellow?
Yeah, black on yellow, never go back. or
Like, was
something.
it a really tough, was it a
I don't
garter
know,
snake?
but I wonder when the commoners got it, if then the royalty were like, you know how we view oh, that's a tramp stamp. You know,
Yeah.
when
Right.
the lower back tattoos, that's what it's called now, but when it was really popular, everybody was getting them. So I wonder when commoners started getting them, if the royalty were
Forget it.
I've had some-
regret.
Well, I've had some tattoos. They're still pretty expensive, so I don't know if just commoners can afford them because I still feel like
Well,
royalty.
maybe they
needs it.
put those in a priority above other things, because there's been people that I've come across where it's clearly they could probably do better on food and housing and attire, but yet
Yeah.
they are tattooed up. So
Well-
it becomes a priority over other things, I feel like.
Americans spend $1.6 billion a year on tattoos.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can see that because after my first tattoo, I wanted more.
Did you?
Yeah.
See, I got my first one at 18. It was really simple. And then I got another one later. And
What was your first one?
it was a sunflower.
And what was your second one?
A
Where was
name
your first one?
on my stomach.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've always been you want to cover them up. It's fine if I want to show it, which it's hardly ever, but I don't want it to be present.
What was the second one?
It's a name.
Where's your second one at, Jen?
It was a girls' trip
Tell us the
to
story.
Palm Springs.
I want to hear the
Okay,
story.
so I went to Palm Springs kind of as a bachelorette party with some girlfriends. The sad thing is it was day drinking, so it was pretty
That's when
harmless.
tattoos come around.
Pretty harmless, but two of us literally were just the other gal that was with us. I only really got to know her on this trip. She wasn't a close friend of mine, but she was total fun, and we just walked right on by hey, tattoos, let's go in. And the other two gals had none, and we're do not do it. And then it was almost that how I like to take bets. It was kind of almost
You've
no, I
been dared.
have to now. So we went in. Next thing I know, I'm getting my soon-to-be husband's name tattooed on my rear. So I didn't really regret it, until we went to get married. And then his daughter, who was 9 at the time, when I was getting my wedding dress on, she was like, "Jen, that's my dad's name."
So that's the hardcore. You got it before you got married.
Mhm.
That's impressive.
I still am happy with it, but yeah, she was kind of, and then my husband found out that she saw it, and he's a non-tattoo person. He doesn't hate it on other people, but he has none. So when I came home with it, he wasn't impressed. He was just like, this is not a good start.
Oh, no.
Was that when he decided to marry you? Because if my name's on your butt,
He
might
probably
as well.
felt like he's super loyal. He was like,
Now I have to.
But it wasn't your bachelorette party?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it was about.
Yeah.
Oh, so you were about to get married anyway.
yeah,
you
it
knew
was
it was
like
happening.
a
Okay.
month later.
I thought it was
got
like
married.
first date or something. You know?
No,
Oh, God.
no.
I actually dated a guy when I was in high school who got my name tattooed on his arm.
Oh, did you
Aw.
feel responsibility?
No, I told him he was stupid. It's like, that's the dumbest tattoo
You're
I've
dumb because
ever
I'm about to
seen.
break up
Well,
with
and
you.
it seems very clear, like to not do that. I don't. Well, and well, Angelina Jolie, like she had like a Billy Bob
Right.
tattoo. Now she got it removed, which we'll talk
Mhm.
about in a bit. But yeah, like it just.
Did she get it removed or was it covered up?
I think hers was removed
Okay.
because I remember seeing like in magazines where they were like noticing it fading. Probably several treatments that it took.
Gotcha.
So, but their relationship was so quick that maybe it wasn't that hard because it was a newer tattoo.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, so talk to me more about how tattoos are actually formed or how does it work? Because if you think about like the process of having it done, like I've heard lots of people say they're painful. I guess maybe the areas I had mine done were like really fatty because I don't remember them hurting. Also, I might have been inebriated, but like how exactly does a tattoo work? Like why does it stay in your body?
Well, it comes down to, we've got 3 layers of skin, right? You've got epidermis, which is your outer layer, and that's just basically keeping you waterproof, which is nice. Those
Waterproof.
it's good to be
Like
waterproof.
an otter.
And then you've got your second layer of skin, which is your dermis, and that's going to have things like your hair follicles, your sweat glands, sebaceous glands. It's going to have some nerve endings, which is why tattoos are painful because you're hitting into that dermis. But you've got your dendrites there, so you're going to be able to feel. And so there's no nerve endings like in your epidermis. And then you've got your subcutaneous fat, and that's going to have things like the connective tissue that connects things to your muscles and bones. And then it also helps keep us warm for temperature regulation. And, if in case we're, starving, we get some energy stores from there. So what happens, first of all, your epidermis layer will actually regenerate itself. It starts with the basal layer. The bottommost layer of that epidermis is basal cells, and then those cells slowly migrate outward, and then by the time they get to the very top of your skin, they're kind of dead cells that just flake off, and that process takes about a month. And then, so what's happening when the tattoo artist starts injecting the needle, he's trying to hit that layer right between the dermis and the epidermis. And so some tattoo artists push a little harder, they're going a little too deep, some don't go as deep, but they're trying to hit that sweet spot right in there. And what happens is the ink then gets implanted there, and they kind of homogenize that layer of epidermis and dermis and the layer between them. And so you'll get some ink in the epidermis and you'll get some in the dermis. The epidermal ink will then, over the course of that first month, slowly get that trans-epidermal migration towards the outside of your epidermis and then flake off. And so you've probably seen that it's super bright when you first get the tattoo, and after the first month it kind of dulls a little bit, and that's just that epidermis portion coming out. Then over the course, while that's happening, also in your dermis, your immune system gets activated because you've just damaged that dermis layer, and so you'll get all the white blood cells. Specifically, the macrophages, like we talked about, is trying to get rid of that cellular debris, and so they'll engorge around that. And that's going to be in that top layer, that papillary layer of your dermis, which is that outer layer of your dermis. And that's where it'll reside. So in the beginning, it's kind of it's brighter, that tattoo, because it's closer to the skin surface. Then since the macrophage can't get rid of that pigment cell, macrophages don't last as long as your body. They last a year or two, and then they break down, and that leaves the skin pigment available for other macrophages to come along and engorge around it, and that'll actually kind of go a little bit deeper into your dermis then at that point, and then rinse and repeat over the course of your lifetime. The macrophages break down and new macrophages go around the skin pigment, and then slowly over time that goes deeper and deeper into your dermis, and so then you see the tattoo fading over time because it's getting deeper into your skin. And then after about 40 years, they've actually looked at some of the lymph nodes in those areas, and you can get some skin pigment in your lymph nodes because your body is slowly able to break that down over time. And so that's kind of how the tattoo is staying and how it's fading over time.
So would you say then that there's probably more, it's more important that the tattoo is delivered properly or by somebody? So you could probably have a really good tattoo artist as far as the artistic goes, but if they don't have a good technique for placing the ink properly, you may not have a good tattoo. I was thinking about like the aftercare and how specific they are about covering when you uncover, how hydrated you keep it, and is that really as important as, hey dude, it's on you? Like, you should have done a better job if it starts flaking horribly. You know, like, is there probably more to the actual?
Well, and there is,
technique?
and when it comes to the, and this is where we see it when it comes into the removal of the tattoo, it's harder to remove a tattoo that was properly placed than it is for an amateur tattoo, because the amateurs are either, you know, they're not as deep or in that sweet spot, and so there's less treatment that you need to get rid of that tattoo versus the one who's professional. So it does matter, your tattoo artist.
Yeah.
I have an amateur tattoo.
Do you?
really?
Yeah. It's right there.
No.
How did you get that?
There's supposed to be 3 little dots. There's one red one that you can't see. But
Like how
in high
amateur?
school-
Oh dear.
high school we were doing something with ink. I can't remember, but Indian inks. And my friend looked at me. He's like, "Hey, do you want a tattoo?" And I'm like, "Sure." And he just took the needle, dipped it in the ink, and shoved it in there. And I was like, "Sure, did 3
This
dots.
is like
Let's do
art?
it." Yeah, in art class.
And he gave you 3-dot smiley
Where did
face
you
or something?
No, it was just 3 dots. Like, I don't know what I was
You're
saying.
like,
That's not gonna
You're
work.
roughing on us because we made bad tattoo decisions.
Everybody just thinks it's like
has
a mole.
She has an amateur stoplight tattooed in her arm.
Everybody just thinks it's a mole.
It
or
does.
every once in a while, like, oh, were you stabbed with a pencil?
Yeah, it
Like,
does
that's
look
what
like
people. Like,
Well, and that's
oh, that's my tattoo from high school.
Super awesome.
Yeah, it stays with me for a while.
It's kind of funny though.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
You know, in high school, I was like, this isn't gonna work. Oh my god!
It's still there.
Yeah.
You didn't know, like in your 30s, you're gonna be showing
Yeah.
your friends. Oh dear.
Well, that's how some cultures did it. They would cut the skin and then just put different pigments into it, and then it'd heal over and then be tattooed. 'Cause
Yeah,
it
and
really-
like kind of barbaric. Like they would make their own little like wood dowel type things, right? And
yeah, and then
Tap
mash it in. Because all
Right.
you need to do is get the ink at that dermis layer, and then the immune system takes
and
over
that
from
makes
there.
sense to me if you're getting like symbols in one color, and like I can see why like tribes, you know, like would do that. But now you look at tattoos and they're so intricate and so many colors and stuff. Like
Yeah. Well, in each one of those colors, pigments is different sizes. So so for instance, a black pigment is usually around 4 micrometers, and red and yellow are actually about twice that size. So different colors will actually fade differently because of how the macrophage engorges around it, and if it's able to get rid of that color easier than the other ones, then that color will fade compared to
that
the
makes
others.
sense.
Yeah.
What now? What do you have?
It was just ink used to be made by mixing fire pit ashes and urine. And every once in a while they'd throw in some plants just to create different colors.
So whose urine did they use?
Yeah.
That's what I want to know. Like, did you let your tattoo artist donate urine, or do
I
you
just
donate
can't
your
even-
own urine?
Yeah, I just can't even imagine.
And
like,
did they have asparagus
like-
for dinner?
Yeah.
Like, was this pleasurable experience?
I just feel like, why would even someone think like, oh, I think I'm gonna pee in this and then tattoo it in someone?
I'm just imagining somebody cutting someone and then, here, let me cut you and pee on you.
Well, did they
Yeah.
think maybe like the yellow tint of the urine would change? But you're using fire ashes, and black always
Right.
it would
Yeah.
change, make it look dark. You know, it's like when you mix black paint with
Just-
yeah.
happy we've evolved.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I would be
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna get blueberries and rose petals. Like I don't think I would be like, oh, pee.
Yeah.
That's what I want to try.
Let me inject this in someone.
Oh, gee.
What other bodily fluids could they use? Because really, it doesn't matter as long as it. I mean, they've used plastics, woods, vegetable
Metals.
matter, metals.
Well, and are there harmful effects? You talked about the lymph nodes. Like the ink will eventually travel to lymph nodes. So are
Yes.
there inks and things that were unhealthy?
Well, and you are stimulating your immune system, so like anything in your immune system, you can be allergic to it. And interestingly enough, the pigments for yellow and red are the most common for people to be allergic to. Now, it's pretty rare to be allergic to a tattoo, but of those people who are, reds and yellows for whatever reason.
Huh. What
It's
is
exciting.
it? Yellow number 5?
Yellow dye number 5.
Yeah.
Well, and I think there's only still like 11 states that are not regulated by or mandated by the state for different.
Like being sterile
Requirements.
and
Yeah,
that's so creepy to me.
state regulated.
You know, like
entities,
if you go like the last time I got one, like the tattoo artist was like made it like a show almost of like opening the
Yes.
package and showing me, and I just couldn't imagine going into a state and being like wherever I don't even know
Well,
which states
and
are not, and not
you
having
would be.
like a process.
I was surprised, like Nevada, like going to Las Vegas.
Oh,
Not
those people are
regulated.
gonna get
And there's some of
tattoos.
the best tattoos
Right,
there.
not regulated. Georgia, Idaho, Massachusetts, Maryland, Pennsylvania,
That surprises me. Like I thought it was
New
going to be
York.
more like
and
I
Washington.
don't know what
DC.
states, but I would figure that's
According
not
to
the
us.
one.
I know,
Yeah,
I
I
just
don't know.
thought
I
they
don't
would
want
Those
to be hated.
Texans.
No, not
Yeah.
like I was thinking like just I don't know.
Utah.
I would be
Utah's
scared.
one of them too.
Wow.
But I would have just assumed, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like maybe a little. I don't know. There's no rhyme or reason, but
Well,
those are
that
the
seems
states that
strange
are
because you
not
could make a
regulated.
tattoo literally out of anything. Pen ink in high school, like there's some witch doctor in the back taking fecal
Indian
matter and
Well, what I
some,
wanna
you
know
know,
of
mint
those-
and making something.
Of those states, how many of them have regulations for like nail salons? Like even nail salons, their tools have to be like even hair salons, like their brushes and combs have to be like put in a little sterile.
Yeah.
Well,
So
and
you're not gonna like be worried about a needle.
it's probably just the prioritization of those legislatures. Can
But
regulate
if you
that.
Google like every state, there's weird laws, like
Yeah.
archaic, crazy, like you can't take a cow into town on Thursdays. You know, like just weird. You know.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they take like in Las
Precautions.
Vegas, they take precautions, but it's just not a state regulated thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and I let's talk about like with when I would donate blood regularly, they would ask you, have you gotten a tattoo in the last 12 months?
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Have you
'cause-
traveled out of the state? You had a blood transfusion, but I always thought, it's kind of like, it's a big deal. Like it's,
well, because there's some states they can't, so maybe you're going to get hepatitis or something
Yes.
random.
So if you've gotten a tattoo from these states, the American Red Cross say wait a year. But if it's like you got one in Washington,
Yeah.
you can donate blood tomorrow.
but that's the Red Cross. You could have other agencies,
Yeah,
though, that
mhm.
would say none at
Right.
all. Yeah. Because if I remember right, I remember like not being able to donate for like a year.
So the Red Cross is more stringent. Somebody else taking your blood, they're just all willy-nilly about
I
it.
don't know.
We'll
I don't
just take it
know.
all.
But there's different agencies that do it, and there's profit and non-profit, I believe. So I had to have a blood transfusion, and it's not cheap. That is a
That-
pretty penny in that blood, let me tell you.
That line item was spent.
Yeah, well, you get your bill and they break it down, and it's like, what? I've been donating this stuff for years. Where's my discount?
Where's the overhead there? There's none.
Oh,
Wow.
geez, 4 pints will set you back 10 grand. I don't know. I don't remember how bad it was, but it was pretty bad.
Jeez.
So
Wow.
yeah.
So hopefully you liked what you heard here today. If you did, please subscribe to us. Go ahead and click on any of the episodes you see pop up. And as always, everything in moderation.